We've been telling you in recent days about a federal law enforcement operation that deliberately put guns in the hands of criminals. Those guns ended up in Mexico and were used in crimes there, including dozens of murders. There are allegations of multiple agency involvement, a deliberate lack of communication, and a cover-up. The man who has been looking for answers and accountability for Operation Fast and Furious is House Oversight and Government Reform Chairman Darrell Issa. He joins us live from the Hill tonight. Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening, Brett, and thanks for covering this important issue where lives have been lost on both sides of the border.
Chairman, you interviewed acting ATF Director Kenneth Melson over the holiday weekend, moved up this interview, actually. According to a letter you and Senator Chuck Grassley have sent to the Attorney General Eric Holder, it stated, among other things, quote, "The evidence we have gathered raises the disturbing possibility that the Justice Department not only allowed criminals to smuggle weapons, but that taxpayer dollars from other agencies may have financed those engaging in such activities." So from what you know, why was this operation launched in the first place? What was the goal?
Well, it depends on whose perspective you're looking at. If you're Ken Melson and you're at the ATF, what your agency is being told is this is a way to follow the guns, to roll up bigger fish. However, if you're at Justice and you're able to see DEA and other agencies and know what they know, you already know the names of the bigger fish and even have paid informants as middlemen, and that's where we discovered that it in fact was U.S. dollars that in at least some part was used to buy weapons.
But there's no evidence so far from what we've seen, and you obviously have seen a lot more than we have, that ATF was actually tracking those guns, that they were actually tracking them across the border.
You're exactly right. With only two exceptions where they put tracking devices on them, was there any physical tracking beyond basically a few hours of following the first car at most. In one case, they did watch them go on a GPS device quite a ways into Mexico. But of course, they didn't inform the Mexican officials. They didn't have a team on the other side of the border to follow it. So at some point, the signal simply disappeared.
In that letter to the Attorney General, you say that the ATF has essentially been muzzled and that the DOJ sent over false denials and essentially buried its head in the sand. In that interview over the weekend, and this is a quote you've just released from the transcript from Kenneth Melson, he says, quote, "You have the agents who were involved in the case who didn't have bad motives in doing this. They were trying to do what they thought was the right thing and guided by their supervisors." Congressman, how high do you think this goes?
Well, it certainly goes to the highest levels of justice. When I say the highest levels of justice, it's Lanny Breuer's area of justice that has to authorize wiretaps and other activities. And, of course, controlling a task force that included DEA, FBI, and elements of the U.S. Attorney's Office, again, has to go to the top levels of justice. So we know it goes there, and that's eventually where we want answers, because clearly ATF, although a participant, in some cases was very much kept in the dark.
We just had a picture of the Assistant Attorney General Lanny Breuer. There are wiretaps involved in this case, and do you think this went all the way up to the Attorney General?
Well, we've been told by the President and by the Attorney General that they not only didn't authorize it, but in the case of the Attorney General, he claims he didn't know it till long after, quite frankly, Justice claims I was briefed in a way that I don't remember being briefed, and neither is anybody else in the room. So we do have an oddity in that the Attorney General knew or should have known long before he says he did. You know, at the point that Senator Grassley is sending letters, months go by before the Attorney General says he's even aware of this program. It doesn't make much sense to us to have a senior senator getting a letter rebuffed and then a congressman sending over a chairman sending over a number of inquiries, and the Attorney General says he wasn't yet aware of it at that time. So we have our doubts.
Do you have any indication that the motive here was somehow political in any way? There are allegations about, you know, gun control and efforts by the administration. Do you have any indication that that's true?
Well, the allegation I can make is under President George W. Bush, U.S. attorneys were even fired for not enforcing gun laws strictly enough. Under this administration, there seems to be a don't bother to enforce at all policy. So that disturbs us, that there's less gun enforcement about illegal gun transactions under an administration that theoretically is more for gun control. And George W. Bush went out of his way to try to help the Mexicans by having a zero tolerance to illegal gun sales that could end up in Mexico. That should be answered by the administration. The Bush policy should not have been reversed.
Last thing, you mentioned a confidential informant. Are we to believe that the FBI knew its confidential informant was a gun runner and just turned the other way on these incidents?
Well, I can't speak to the turn the other way with specificity, but I can certainly say they knew that they had people who were participating in this, and they did nothing even to inform ATF. And that's disturbing, that the agency we count on for gun and explosive protection was kept in the dark about these individuals, as, by the way, were the ATF agents in Mexico City who were finding these weapons and were unable to trace them back to this program.
Very quickly, I only have 15 seconds here. What is the next step?
Well, the next step is we follow the evidence where it leads. Whistleblowers and confidential informants, if you will, within justice are coming to us. And unfortunately, that's because we're not getting real discovery from the administration. They're sending us sheets of paper that are virtually all black from where they've been redacted. We're hoping to get more cooperation. We're hoping the administration will decide that coming clean is better than slow rolling the discovery that we're getting.
Congressman Issa, thank you very much for your time tonight, and please keep us apprised.
Will do, Brett. Thank you.